The Moon, our closest companion in the solar system, yet still so mysterious. In its hidden corners, an astronaut saw something that became a nightmare for him. Lights, shining lights, a sight that deepens the mysteries of space. This is not just a story, but a reality that is still recorded in National Aeronautics and Space Administration's history, a moment of fear and then its revelation. So today, let's peek into those dark corners of the Moon where a light gave birth to a new question. April 1972. National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Apollo 16 mission was advancing on its journey to the Moon. This mission was sent to explore the Moon's highland areas where no human had ever set foot before. 3 astronauts embarked on this journey: Commander John Young, Lunar Module Pilot Charles Duke, and Command Module Pilot Ken Mattingly. The purpose of this mission was to explore new regions of the Moon, bring back samples, and establish human presence in unseen areas of the Moon. But on April 19, when the spacecraft reached the Moon's orbit, a strange incident shook their world. John Young and Charles Duke were in the lunar module preparing to land on the Moon, while Ken Mattingly was completely alone in the command module. They were orbiting around the Moon, and when they reached the dark side of the Moon, the part completely hidden from Earth, they saw something very strange there. In the pitch-black darkness of space, some bright lights were shining above, and one after another, the lights started getting brighter, as if someone in space was calling them. This wasn't just a momentary sight. These lights kept appearing in front of them for a full 15 minutes. Ken spoke to John over the headset and said, "John, I'm seeing some lights. They don't look normal." John asked in surprise, "Lights? There shouldn't be anything up there. Is it a reflection from the spacecraft?" Ken replied, "No, it's outside. They're forming a kind of pattern." As soon as Charles Duke heard this, he immediately said, "That sounds really spooky. Could it be some kind of signal?" But Ken had no answer. These lights became an unsolved mystery for them. Were they coming from the Moon or from beyond the depths of space? Now just imagine, you are alone in the Moon's orbit. Inside a small command module, outside there is only darkness. No light from the ground, no sound, and then suddenly lights start flashing in front of you, sometimes in a line, sometimes scattered, and sometimes forming a mysterious pattern. They weren't stars, because stars don't blink that brightly, and they weren't satellites either, because at that time there was no man-made object on the dark side of the Moon. So then what was it? Was there some activity happening inside the Moon, or was some unknown force secretly watching them? After that incident, a strange fear settled in Ken's heart. Ken Mattingly was an experienced astronaut, but this sight was completely new to him. At that time, he was completely alone in the module when he saw those lights. John and Charles were down in the lunar module, and there was no direct contact with ground control either. Ken recorded this in his audio log and thought that maybe after returning to Earth, he would understand everything. But at that moment, those lights in the darkness became a terrifying experience for him. After the mission, he said, being alone up there was already strange, and then those lights completely shocked me. When John Young and Charles Duke landed on the surface of the Moon, they started their work there. During the mission, Charles said, "This part of the Moon is completely different. The atmosphere here feels a bit strange, but they didn't see any lights there." Ken, who was up in orbit, kept seeing the shining lights again and again. He told Graphic Ground Control, "I'm seeing some flashes above the Moon. What could this be?" Ground Control replied, "It might be some optical effect or illusion, please confirm," but Ken was sure this was not something ordinary. After the Apollo 16 mission ended and all 3 astronauts returned to Earth, Ken mentioned this incident. In the briefing, he said, "I couldn't understand what those lights actually were, but they were there, right in front of my eyes." For National Aeronautics and Space Administration scientists, this became a new mystery. Some people thought that maybe it was a sign of some alien civilization on the moon, a civilization that perhaps we cannot see. Others said that it might be some cosmic event like a meteor or... The question was, if it was really that simple, then why did only Ken see it? Why didn't anyone else see it? This became a topic of discussion both inside and outside National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Some scientists theorized that maybe it was some gas released from an old volcanic crater on the moon, which was producing the light. Some people thought that maybe it was some debris floating in space, reflecting sunlight. But Ken said that those lights were in a rhythm, as if someone was doing it intentionally. This made people even more curious. Was there really a big secret hidden in space? This mystery remained unsolved from 1972 until the next year. Then, in 1973, National Aeronautics and Space Administration gave a scientific explanation for it. Scientists said that those shining lights were actually caused by cosmic rays. Cosmic rays are high-energy particles that travel rapidly through space. When these particles hit Ken Mattingly's retina, they produced small flashes. We have known about this phenomenon for a long time, and it often happens with astronauts. But in Apollo 16, it was more intense because Ken was on the dark side of the moon, where Earth's magnetic field was not shielding him. This explanation is absolutely correct according to science. Cosmic rays can create an illusion of light in human eyes, and these flashes can also appear in a pattern. National Aeronautics and Space Administration also confirmed that it was not any external light, but rather Ken's brain and eyes reacting to the cosmic rays. But even after this, one question remains. Was this the whole truth? Ken always said that he felt the light was outside. It didn't seem like it was just a trick of his eyes. John Young and Charles Duke accepted this explanation, but Ken Mattingly was never fully convinced by it. In an interview, he said, even if it was cosmic rays, the fear of that moment was something different. Being alone there and seeing all that, it's something I'll remember for the rest of my life. This incident makes us think about how strange and unfamiliar space can sometimes be. Even if science explains it, the feeling of that moment will always remain a mystery. Today, we have found answers to those lights, but what happened to Ken in the darkness of the moon still feels like a scary story. Space has always attracted us, and there really is something behind that attraction, which even made our ancestors look up at the sky. It's something where behind every explanation, there's still a hidden question. Its excitement never fades. Our planet's only natural satellite, that is, our moon, has been full of mysteries from ancient times to modern times, even today, and we humans still have many questions about it because from the very beginning, we've been seeing it so close to our Earth. So there's always been a curiosity about it in the minds of humans. We have some very genuine questions about our moon, like where did the moon actually come from? Although we don't have a single answer to this question, different scientific communities give their own answers based on different arguments, but here, the answers are given within the boundaries of science. For example, some scientists believe that the moon was also like an asteroid. When it was moving along its path and came too close to the Earth, it got trapped in Earth's gravity and started orbiting it. Some scientists believe that the moon was formed when an asteroid collided with the Earth, while others think that the moon is a broken off part of the Earth itself that somehow separated from us. But the most widely accepted theory is the giant impact hypothesis, which says that a planet named Theia, about the size of Mars, collided with our Earth, and that's how our moon was formed. When we can't accept something, can't understand the science behind an event, or don't have complete information about it, then to rationalize that event, stories are created. That's how conspiracy theories are born, like the one that says our moon is a hollow moon, meaning it's empty from the inside. Not only that, some strange alien species also live on our moon, and there are even claims that the moon is an extraordinary spaceship made with alien technology. These are some conspiracy theories about our moon, which seem to be outside the realm of science. The history of these conspiracy theories isn't very old, but it's definitely interesting. In the year 1741, author Ludwig Holberg published a novel titled Niels Klim's Underground Travels. It was a science fiction novel in which the main character, in the year 1666, explores some caves in Norway and suddenly falls into one of them. He describes feeling like he was in free fall, just like in space, and then he lands on the ground. There, he explores the world inside the earth. That was the first time people in the world heard about the concept of an inner world inside the earth. And many people started to believe in this conspiracy theory because Holberg very cleverly wrote in the very first line of his book that all the events described in this story are completely true. And to add weight to his statement, he used words like indisputably true. The roots of the hollow moon theory also come from this novel. In 1901, H.G. Wells, who is today also called the father of science fiction, he published a novel titled The First Men in the Moon. In this, Wells writes about a journey to the moon. Remember, this was the year 1901. At that time, there had been no manned moon mission, nor was there any discussion about it. The main character of the novel goes to the moon, and when he lands there, he sees that the moon is nothing like how we see it from here. It is hollow, and people can live there. He also discovers a strange alien species on the moon, which had been living there for an unknown amount of time. Although it was just a science fiction novel, this story had already reached people about 60 years before National Aeronautics and Space Administration landed on the moon. Now the time comes. The year was 1969, Apollo 11, when humanity set foot on the moon for the first time. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were now on the moon, but they didn't see anything like the hollow moon there. But then, how did the hollow moon theory gain traction later on? There was actually a big misunderstanding behind this as well. The Apollo 11 astronauts had returned safely to Earth, but they had left behind quite a few scientific things on the moon, including retroreflectors to measure the distance from Earth to the moon, as well as many other scientific instruments. In 1979, National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Apollo 12 mission landed on the moon. This time, National Aeronautics and Space Administration researchers wanted to learn about the moon's composition. Astronauts Pete Conrad and Alan Bean set up a passive seismic experiment on the surface of the moon, which was part of a mission called the Apollo Lunar Surface Experiment Package. After completing all their missions, when the Apollo 12 astronauts return and sit inside their command module, they crash their lunar module onto the surface of the moon. This impact left behind a lot of things, including reflectors from Earth to the moon and many scientific instruments. The passive seismic experiment placed on its surface recorded all this data, and when the scientists on Earth saw these readings, they were shocked. Where there are earthquakes on Earth, the biggest vibrations on Earth last for 30 seconds or at most 2 minutes, but on the moon, these vibrations kept going continuously. National Aeronautics and Space Administration continued its experiment because this was strange. It pulled it towards itself. But before understanding this mystery, they recorded all this data, and when the scientists present saw these readings, they were shocked. This revealed that earthquakes commonly occur on the moon. We know that there is no atmosphere on the moon. That's why asteroids become the cause of moonquakes there, according to all this data. Scientists on Earth recorded it based on the data. These happen because of its internal activities, and they are very rare. Look, they are called asteroid-caused quakes, which means they happen because of asteroids or meteors colliding. The third is thermal quakes, which happen due to sudden changes in temperature there. And the fourth is shallow quakes, which occur 19 miles below its surface. The moonquake triggered by National Aeronautics and Space Administration also falls under the category of shallow quakes, and its effects are the most dangerous. Some moonquakes in this category have also been recorded at a reading of 5.5 on on the Richter scale. These are also naturally observed on the moon, although scientists still haven't figured out what exactly is causing them. By this time, these moonquakes had become one of the biggest mysteries of the moon. Talking about this experiment, Professor Cleve R. Neal from the University of Notre Dame Civil Engineering and Geological Sciences said, once he said that the moon was ringing like a bell, Sathi, he compared the vibrations of the moonquake to a tuning fork, which is a kind of acoustic resonator. However, this was just a figure of speech. In reality, the moon doesn't actually ring like a bell, but conspiracy theorists misinterpreted what he said and tried to use it to support the hollow earth theory. The general public always has this question in mind that superpowers are hiding something from us. Surely, something is being kept from us, whether it's about Area 51 alien bases, the hollow moon, or some other dangerous thing. And then when we hear any such conspiracy theory, we start believing in it even if we don't want to, because somewhere in our minds, we also feel that we were right and the superpowers were trying to hide this from us. Somewhere, our bias comes in between. The vibrations of an earthquake on Earth last for 30 seconds or at most 2 minutes, and the reason behind this is the presence of water on Earth. Because of water, rocks, different minerals, and the water itself create a compressible structure, just like a foam sponge, which quickly absorbs vibrations and Ayan was able to stop a vibration. Moonquakes keep vibrating the moon for 5 to 10 minutes, but the moonquake recorded by Apollo 12 was very different. It reached its peak value in about 8 minutes, and then it took more than an hour to completely die out. And this is where the idea of the moon ringing like a bell was mistranslated. This gave rise to the hollow moon theory, but now we have a better scientific explanation, and that is, there is no water on the moon, and if there is, it is frozen in solid form. The moon is much drier and more rigid compared to the Earth. Because of this, the vibrations from moonquakes travel inside it for a longer time. Another claim made to support the hollow moon theory is regarding the moon's density. It is believed that if the moon was formed from the Earth, then both should have the same density. Whereas the moon's mean density is 3.3 grams per cubic centimeter and Earth's density is 5.5 grams per cubic centimeter. Why is this so? Scientists believe that this is due to the different densities and sizes of the crust, mantle, and core of both bodies. The hollow moon theory falls apart here, but in 1970, Mikhail Vasin and Alexander Sherbakov of the Soviet Academy of Sciences took this hypothesis and conspiracy even further. They said that the moon is an alien spaceship created by an unknown alien species. But their article, "The Moon, the Creation of Alien Intelligence," was not published in any scientific journal. It was published in a Reader's Digest called Sputnik, which anyway cannot be taken seriously. Apart from the moon, there are also talks about our Earth and Martian moon Phobos being hollow. But scientifically, that's impossible. And these theories only look good in sci-fi movies. After 50 years, humans are once again ready to set foot on the surface of the moon. In these changing times, once again, an attempt is being made to create history, the same task that was done in haste nearly 5 decades ago. Now the time has come to repeat it with complete confidence and patience. Yes, this is National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Artemis mission, through which National Aeronautics and Space Administration wants to conquer the moon once again. For the first time since 1972, humans will once again set foot on the surface of the moon. And this time, what's special about this mission is that now a woman and a man of color, that is, a black person, will also travel to the moon. This will not only be a huge scientific accomplishment, but it is also being seen as a significant moment for humanity. The risks, the excitement, and the fear that the astronauts who traveled to the moon 50 years ago experienced, these new astronauts will also face, but with time, things have changed a lot. Today, we are much more advanced compared to the 1970s. Our rockets and our computers are better in every way than before. But the moon is a barren world that is still largely hidden from our eyes. Even today, the same dangers and risks are waiting for us here, the ones that these astronauts overcame a few decades ago to achieve victory. Recently, National Aeronautics and Space Administration introduced the world to the team of astronauts who will land on the surface of the moon in 2024 under the Artemis mission. This will be a historic moment when, once again, we will land on the surface of the moon and revive the nostalgia of those old days in our minds. At the same time, our future generations will also be inspired to participate in crewed space flights. Of course, they have gone here thousands of kilometers away from Earth. Heading towards an unknown world in the desolate space is certainly a thrilling experience, but it also reminds us of the dangers that were overcome decades ago. If we talk about the last 60 years, ever since humans first pierced through the clouds and started heading towards the dark space up until today, there have also been many tragic accidents in which many precious lives were lost. Whether it was during the practice round of the Apollo moon mission, when a fire broke out in the cabin and all three were burned to death, or while returning to Earth. The tragedy that happened with Space Shuttle Columbia, to this day, many journeys into space have come to a halt at the doorstep of death. In such a situation, space agencies around the world need to ensure the safety of astronauts going on space missions. No doubt, National Aeronautics and Space Administration has maintained an amazing safety parameter. Whether it's the regular spacewalks and recovery flights on the International Space Station, or extremely challenging space missions like the maintenance of the Hubble Space Telescope, during all of these, till today, there has never been any news of an unfortunate incident. The credit for this goes to National Aeronautics and Space Administration's extremely strict safety standards and the rigorous inspection drives that take place before every space flight. But this doesn't mean that the scientists and engineers working at National Aeronautics and Space Administration have never made any mistakes. In the past few decades, such incidents have also come to light. There have been incidents where the ignorant behavior of National Aeronautics and Space Administration employees led to accidents that severely damaged the agency's reputation. Therefore, after these incidents, the investigation clarified everything and action was taken against those responsible. And to deal with any such security challenges that may arise in the future, certain rules and regulations have been established. We all know that National Aeronautics and Space Administration is one of the world's leading space agencies, which keeps doing something new and challenging every day. In such a situation, its security parameters don't hesitate to change them immediately if needed. Not just once, but many times in history, a simple mistake has caused an entire space mission to be ruined. As a result, not only was the spacecraft damaged, but the astronauts on board also had to face a painful death. This incident happened in the year 1967. National Aeronautics and Space Administration hadn't even completed 10 years since its establishment when it witnessed one of the biggest tragedies in its history. Actually, after President Kennedy announced the mission to go to the moon, this became a huge challenge for National Aeronautics and Space Administration. It had only been a few years since humans had gone to space. In such a situation, reaching directly to the surface of the moon was a huge challenge. In this process, a series of tests and experiments on many important systems related to going to the moon was ongoing. One of these was the Apollo 1 mission, whose purpose was to make a test trip to the moon. On the day when the launch rehearsal was going on, a fire broke out in the command module's cabin. All three astronauts were burned to death in the cabin mounted on top of the rocket. This incident was truly shocking because it raised questions about National Aeronautics and Space Administration's security. Even the supervisor of National Aeronautics and Space Administration, Wernher von Braun, was held responsible. The investigation found that the main cause of the fire was a short circuit in the command module's circuitry. The investigation report clearly mentioned that primarily, when a short circuit occurred in those wires, the Teflon covering on them started to burn. Although Teflon is a fire-resistant material, but still, somehow it caught fire, and as the fire spread, it eventually reached a hose, inside which a flammable coolant liquid was flowing to keep the system cool. As soon as the fire came in contact with the coolant, there was a massive explosion, and amidst huge flames, the Apollo 1 command module was burned to ashes. This was a dark chapter in National Aeronautics and Space Administration's history. When the cause of this accident was investigated, it was found that this accident was the result of carelessness due to haste. There was pressure on National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the engineers to complete the work within the deadline at any cost. In such a situation, they made many mistakes in haste. One of the results of this was this accident. Before this accident, Apollo Mission Program Officer Joseph Shea claimed that if there was a fire in the cabin, the only reason would be the crew lighting a cigarette. Anita, it's impossible for a fire to start in this cabin. Therefore, after this accident, his claims were disproved. National Aeronautics and Space Administration Administrator James Webb of that era said in an interview that the fire was the result of a failure in management. James Webb made very strict changes and showed that he would not tolerate any negligence related to the agency's safety. This incident made him lose trust in the high-level management. As a result, he created new safety norms according to his own standards and also made changes in the top administration. After that, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, its safety system improved. The chances of fatal accidents during missions decreased, and in every way, National Aeronautics and Space Administration emerged as a safety-first agency. Now, because the beginning of this great Apollo mission started with a heart-wrenching incident, it had scared everyone. In such a situation, the mission was started nervously, and after that, fortunately, everything went well. One after another, Apollo flights took off, and out of them, 6 flights were successfully landed on the surface of the moon. Amid a mid-flight emergency, 1 flight was brought back safely, and overall, everything was fine up to this point. But then came the year 1986, when once again something happened that brought National Aeronautics and Space Administration its safety standards into question. Yes, this was the Challenger space shuttle disaster that happened in 1986, where the space shuttle exploded in the air just 73 seconds after launch. As a result, the 7 astronauts on board died a painful death, and once again, the world started looking at National Aeronautics and Space Administration with questioning eyes. Even after this accident, National Aeronautics and Space Administration's reputation suffered around the world, after which National Aeronautics and Space Administration once again started reviewing its safety parameters. The investigation conducted after this accident found that this incident was also the result of human error. The contractors and senior engineers associated with this mission had already informed National Aeronautics and Space Administration, its top management, not to launch at below freezing point temperatures. But the officials in management bypassed this advice and decided to go ahead with the launch. And then, exactly what was feared happened. Shortly after the launch, the ring mechanism of Space Shuttle Challenger's solid rocket booster failed. As a result, it caught fire and the entire spacecraft exploded in mid-air. But after this, learning from its mistakes once again, National Aeronautics and Space Administration made its space missions even safer and more reliable. For a full 2 years, the space shuttle missions were halted and research and development work was carried out on them. And moving forward, on the strength of that, the launch and maintenance of the Hubble Space Telescope and the construction of grand space telescopes like the International Space Station were also accomplished. But on February 1, 2003, once again, an incident occurred that shook National Aeronautics and Space Administration to its core. Yes, I am talking about the Columbia Space Shuttle disaster, in which Kalpana Chawla and 6 other astronauts lost their lives while returning from space. Later, when this incident was investigated, it turned out that the same reason was responsible once again. This time too, due to the negligence of technicians and engineers, these astronauts lost their lives and National Aeronautics and Space Administration lost its reputation. Anyway, if we talk about today, National Aeronautics and Space Administration is about to carry out major missions like Artemis, so such negligence will not be tolerated at all. Today's safety norms are millions of times better than before, but there is still a need to make them even better so that the chances of such accidents can be brought down to zero. Even National Aeronautics and Space Administration has shown its commitment to safety by promising to make all tests and experiments foolproof so that no accident can occur. There was a time when humans used to look at space and try to understand it, but he had only one power, and that was the power of imagination. Through this, sometimes he imagined life on the moon and sometimes rivers on Mars. But gradually, times changed, and with the invention of the telescope, we became able to see the environment beyond Earth. After this, our imagination soared even higher, and we decided to think beyond our own limits. The development of science on one hand took us all the way to space. At the same time, while staying on Earth, we were able to create such instruments that allowed us to study any celestial body present in distant space while remaining close to Earth. America and Russia, during the Cold War, we humans had already prepared the blueprint to reach the moon. Although the Cold War was between two countries showing their power to the world, it was about to give a new direction to all of humanity. July 20, 1969 was the historic day when a human set foot on another celestial body, that is, the moon after Earth. With the mission, the Cold War had almost ended, but even after that, America carried out several more missions. America's missions gradually became more scientific. During these missions, American astronauts left many things on the moon's surface and also brought back several hundred kilos of moon rocks to Earth, because the moon can be studied in detail only on Earth. After this, humans launched several missions to the moon and Mars, including rovers and landers were also sent there. The lander couldn't last for long, and the one sent to Saturn could only study Saturn's structure. We couldn't get much information about its interior. Or if we talk about studying the existing planets, a lot of effort has been made. There are many experiments that we want to conduct on those distant planets, but we can't send humans there, and there are some experiments that we can't perform there. They require some special conditions, and those experiments are quite sophisticated, which can give us very rich results. This means that we can go to distant planets, and it is also beneficial for us. But there, we cannot conduct extensive studies like the labs we have on Earth. So the only solution is to somehow bring samples from those planets to Earth, which we can then study in our sophisticated labs. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, Indian Space Research Organization, and several other space agencies are working to bring samples from the moon to Earth. National Aeronautics and Space Administration and European Space Agency are working on the Mars sample return mission. Japan has completed 2 asteroid sample return missions, and National Aeronautics and Space Administration has launched 3 asteroid sample missions. The only goal for everyone is to bring the samples back to Earth from there, so that these can be properly studied in our high facility labs here on Earth. We can't conduct such sophisticated experiments in an unknown environment millions of kilometers away. Should we focus on conducting experiments on other celestial bodies or deal with the challenges that arise there? Think about the survival of our spacecraft in such harsh environments, or risk sacrificing the spacecraft for the sake of experiments. Also, conducting experiments there increases the mission's operational cost, and designing instruments that can perform science in those environments is also costly. That's why a sample return mission becomes necessary. One such sample return mission was sent. Scientists believe that asteroids like Bennu are like time capsules in which the entire history of our solar system is preserved. If we understand these asteroids, it's like we've understood every mystery of our solar system. National Aeronautics and Space Administration's mission Osiris-Rex was launched in 2016. After about 2 years, in 2018, it reached the asteroid, and during this time, it studied the Bennu asteroid closely for almost 2 years. Along with that, a suitable location was chosen to collect its samples. In 2020, it collected samples from Bennu and started heading towards Earth. September 25, 2023. After completing this journey of about 6.2 billion kilometers, it flew by Earth, passing at a distance of about 100,000 kilometers. Along with that, the samples it brought were dropped off on Earth. It made those samples, kept in a small capsule, enter Earth's environment. This capsule coming down was moving towards Earth at a speed of 43,450 kilometers per hour, meaning it was hitting Earth's surface at such a high speed. Its heat shield had heated up to 2,900 degrees Celsius. It was expected that it would deploy its parachutes after reaching 5,000 feet above the ground. But the scientists became worried when its parachutes deployed at 4 times the expected altitude, that is, at 20,000 feet. The Osiris-Rex capsule landed in Utah's American Test and Training Range. This entire desert area belongs to the United States Department of Defense. It took the capsule 10 minutes to travel from the upper atmosphere down to the surface of the Earth. However, the capsule landed safely and there were no cracks or any marks on it. That means the capsule is completely intact. The capsule was recovered by the Defense Department just 2 hours after touchdown. These samples will soon be sent to National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Johnson Space Center in Houston, where they will be kept in special labs. Let me tell you, the samples brought from the moon are also kept in this lab. How much sample Osiris-Rex has collected from asteroid Bennu will only be known after opening it, but scientists estimate that the place where Osiris-Rex touched down was extremely soft and more than what we expected. It is also being said that samples must have been collected in the spacecraft because 3 years ago, when samples were collected from Bennu, the lid of the container in the spacecraft got jammed due to the excess amount of material. But still, if we talk about an estimate, we must have received about 250 grams of sample material. However, America is not the first country to bring a sample from an asteroid. Much before this, Japan had already brought a sample from the Itokawa asteroid in 2010 with its Hayabusa 1 mission, and with the Hayabusa 2 mission samples from the Ryugu asteroid arrived on Earth in 2020. But even then, this achievement is by no means small. The samples brought from Bennu will help us understand how the formation of our solar system actually began and what were the first and last materials from which our solar system was formed. How and where did water come to Earth? Besides this, it can also help solve the mystery of the origin of life. The history from the birth of our solar system to the present day is hidden within these samples. The special thing is that National Aeronautics and Space Administration is not going to keep these samples only to itself. However, 70% of the samples will be kept at National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Johnson Space Center for further research. 25% of the samples will be sent to 35 different facilities around the world where more than 200 scientists will work on these samples. 4% of the samples will be given to the Canadian Space Agency and 0.5% will be given to the Japanese Space Agency. Maintaining unity in science and moving forward together with all of humanity can be an inspiration for us and for the generations to come in our future. The asteroid from which we have collected samples is also important for us for this reason. Because in the next century, that is in 2182, it is going to pass very close to the Earth. And there is a possibility that Bennu will pass so close to us that it could even collide with the Earth. However, no possibility can be confirmed for sure. But the samples brought from it can help us understand this asteroid and open up ways to avoid the dangers it may pose. But for now, there is no need to be afraid of it. But on a cosmological timescale, 100 or 150 years is nothing. It's just a matter of moments. But National Aeronautics and Space Administration and space agencies around the world are also working to deal with the dangers posed by these asteroids. But one day or another, we will definitely have to think about this. Well, Bennu is definitely a big threat, and we have already received samples from here. But the mission of the Origins, spectral interpretation, resource identification, and security, Rex mothership, is not over yet. After doing a flyby of Earth, this spacecraft is now moving forward towards another potentially dangerous asteroid, Apophis, which is going to pass extremely close to our Earth in 2029. Apophis could also become a threat to us in the coming future. That's why it's important that we prepare for any disaster in advance. As they say, prevention is better than cure. So, this National Aeronautics and Space Administration mission is not only raising National Aeronautics and Space Administration's reputation, but also trying to give a new direction to the future of our human race. What results will come out from these samples, only time will tell. But for now, what is your opinion about the success of this mission and the impact this asteroid will have on our future? Do let us know in the comment section. Also friends, if you like this video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. For more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and enable the bell notification. Friends, we will meet again soon with another new informative video like this. Till then, stay curious, be happy, and goodbye.